Greetings, I'm the Bulgarian Troglodyte. Long time no see. So now that I have a bit more time again, I wanted to do this video where I will discuss some of the movies and TV shows that I have watched in the past month or so. Some of these I will talk about a bit more in detail, but some of them I'm gonna gloss over a little bit and maybe only say a couple of sentences about them because with some of these I don't have that much to say about them, but with others I have way more things to say about them. And as always, I'm probably gonna ramble a lot. I haven't really planned what I want to say about these things, so it's gonna be stream of consciousness as always. But we'll see how it goes. So let's start with this. So I've been watching this anime. I haven't finished it yet, but I'll talk about it a little bit here. So I've been watching this anime called Doctor Stone, and this was a movie that came out like between I think the second and the third season. And this was a decent movie, but I'd rather talk about the whole thing. So I have watched the first two seasons, then this movie, and then I think couple of the first episodes of the third season. But I've now been taking a break from the show. But I'm gonna return to it because I enjoy it quite a bit, even though I don't love it. But this one has a very interesting premise. So it's pretty much about like a post-apocalyptic world in a way. So one day in this world, all of humanity turns into stone. So like all humans, like suddenly their bodies turn into stone, and nobody knows why that happened. But then thousands of years later, this one guy, this science geek, teenage guy, wakes up from that stone, and then he has to come up with a plan how to kind of revive humanity and how to build like the scientific civilization again. So it has a very interesting premise. It's not very realistic, of course, because although I guess maybe some of the science is realistic, but some of it isn't. Because again, the whole civilization basically relies on this one teenage guy who knows everything about science, but it's not very kind of realistic that you have a one guy who knows everything about like physics and chemistry and biology and everything else too. But it's still fun. Yeah. And of course, because humanity has been like in the stone form for like several thousand years, that of course means that all the things that existed in the world have been kind of rotten away. So you don't have cities anymore because all the buildings have collapsed and rotten throughout those thousands of years, and you don't have any of the art or any of the books that people did back in the day because all of it has been rotting away. So it's actually like a very uh, bleak show in that way, that imagine a world that like all the music that has been composed, all the books that have been written, all the movies that have been made, like all of that just disappears completely and doesn't exist anymore. Like that's like a horror image in my head. Like if that happened to the world, like how sad that would be, all the knowledge gone. And of course you cannot really recreate that later on. Yeah. So that's such an awful thing. But basically, the plot of the show just shows how, again, this main character, who is this science geek, like he finds a way on how to like depetrify like these other people, and then slowly but surely they start to rebuild civilization, and they have to kind of come up with lots of the basic things like how to create like electricity, for example. And there is one moment where they create an antibiotic because one of the characters has pneumonia and she's about to die. So it's like really fun to see them slowly build the civilization. And as humans are stupid, there is of course conflict between different groups of people. Like there's this one group of people who don't want to return to modern civilization. They think that the humanity would be better off if they didn't revive the old people and they just state in this kind of state of nature, like that brings freedom, and then there wouldn't be any wars and conflict if you don't build like metal swords again and guns and bombs, etc. So there are those kind of interesting ideological ideas here too and clashes. Yeah, but it's a fun show. It has good characters. It's overall well made. But I don't like really love it or anything, but it's a fun watch. Yeah. But let's move on. So the next anime I talked about last year, so I'm not really gonna go to it again much, but I'll just say that Nana, I can say now that it's my favorite anime of all time. And I think at this point it's like in the conversation for being my favorite show of all time, both like anime and live action shows put together because I mean this show is just and this story because I've read some of the manga as well is like my heart and soul. I just absolutely love it and I absolutely love everything about it. The first time I watched it was like a year ago, I think April or May last year, and this was already my third time watching it, so that kind of shows that how much I love it that I've watched it three times in a year, and it's always on my mind. And yeah, I sadly don't have a physical copies of the manga yet, but I have read the manga because the manga continues after the show ends. So yeah, but that's such a amazing story. Yeah. But yeah, this movie I had a great time with. This is also based on a manga. So it's called BL Metamorphosis. So BL means boys love. It's a genre of manga. So basically gay manga. But I think the most people who read boys love manga are again girls and women. But I myself like to read it as well. Yeah. But this was a very heartfelt slice of life film. So it's about this old 75-year-old woman befriending this teenage girl who is still in high school and who works part time at a bookstore. But this old woman goes to the bookstore where the high school girl works at, and then she kind of stumbles onto this boys love manga section in the store. Then she sees one of the covers for one of the boys love manga. She thinks that, oh, that cover looks so cute, so she ends up buying it even though she doesn't know anything about boys love manga. But then she gets addicted to that particular manga story and she keeps going to the store to pick up other volumes and stuff. And the teenage girl who works there is also a big fan of boys love manga, so then they actually become friends over that interest, and then they become like really good friends, and that's such a heartfelt story of human connection when we see kind of 75-year-old woman and a teenage girl becoming friends. Yeah. And I think this is a very relatable story for people like us who love art, whether it's movies or music or books or all of them. And I think many of us can relate to this that how amazing it is when you meet somebody who has a similar interest to you, that maybe you're both cinephiles and then you can start geeking out about movies, and that's such a fulfilling thing, such a great thing in life. So I think even if you aren't into manga or boys love manga, you can kind of probably relate to this story because you have geeked out about another art form with somebody and felt the beautiful human connection through those similar interests that you have with other people. Yeah, but I think this isn't like a masterpiece or anything. It's a pretty like basic slice of life film. It's so much fun to watch. There's not much conflict here. There's not much plot here, but it's such a great watch, and I could have watched way more of this. It was like a two hour film, I think. Yeah, 2 hour long film, and yeah, I could have watched 10 hours of this easily. Yeah. Uh, But in terms of aesthetics, yeah, it doesn't have that visual prowess of Korea, for example. But it has a pretty kind of basic look that you usually have in like J dramas and stuff, even though this is a movie and not a drama. Yeah, and it's directed by Shunsuke Kariyama. I don't know anything about. Kariyama. I think this is the only thing I've watched from Kariyama. So yeah, and this came out like a few years ago. Few years ago. Yeah. But if I gave star ratings based on enjoyment alone, I would actually probably give this 5 stars because I had such a great time with it. But as it is a very basic, quite cliche and surface level movie, I cannot kind of critically give it 5 stars because again, my star rating system kind of takes into account pretty much all aspects of filmmaking, so I don't only consider my own enjoyment. Yeah, but yeah, I really love this movie, and I could see myself watching this like once a year, and I'm probably gonna check the manga out that this is based on as well. Yeah, highly recommend this if you can find it. Then, well, I'm not gonna talk about much about these next two. So we have Cherry Magic, the movie. So this was a like a sequel to the Cherry Magic drama series that I like a couple years ago or a year and a half ago. I discussed the manga as well, which I read like late 2023, I think. And the manga was good, and I need to catch up with the manga as the manga has continued. But this live action adaptation was pretty good as well, but I don't have that much to say about it. Then this film, The Last 10 Years, it's about like a woman who finds out that she's gonna die in 10 years. Then we see what she decides to do in those 10 years. Of course, that type of plot has been done many times, but I couldn't really connect to this one for some reason. I think I didn't like the characters that much, and then I didn't end up caring that much about what happens to her because I just didn't care for the characters. And this one had that kind of typical, very muted aesthetic style of today's cinema, and I didn't like it that much. But for some reason, this film didn't really connect with me, even though I often like this type of story a lot. But this next one, on the other hand, I enjoyed quite a lot, so I'm gonna talk about this one a bit more. So we have 1 Million Yen Girl by Yuki Tanada. So this is a film that I've wanted to watch for quite a while. So I'm glad that I was able to watch it. Yeah. But so this is about a young girl who gets out of prison, and then we see how she tries to build her life after that prison experience. And she has this weird rule for herself that when she moves to another town, that she's gonna save 1 million yen. And then once she has saved that much money, she's gonna move to another location, and she kind of wants to be kind of anonymous. So she doesn't want to build serious relationships with other people. So this film is divided into a few different sections where we see her life in different towns and cities. Like there's this one weird small town where she works for a while with those kind of very idiosyncratic small townspeople. And that was a fun moment. And then the last section, there is a love story, but it's done in a very interesting and a unique way. And this has very simple kind of slice of life aesthetic style to it. So lots of still shots, like very basic shots, but it looks quite nice. And the main character, I really liked her. I liked some of the other characters as well. But this was a great movie. I really enjoyed watching it. Kind of pretty much everything works well in it. And if you like slice of life films, I think you will like this. And this is definitely a bit of a unique take on that. And the tone was pretty interesting as well. Like at moments it's fairly dark, but there are also moments that are kind of funny, mostly in a very dry way, so that might not even be funny to some other people, but I found lots of the things here quite funny. Yeah, really good performances here as well. And yeah, very interesting film. Yeah, good stuff, good stuff. Then, yeah, the next one I really enjoyed as well. So it's we made a beautiful Bouquet by Nobuhiro Doi. So let's open it here. Another very recent Japanese film. So I had such a great time with this, but this is one of those films that it can kind of deceive you in the beginning because it starts out as this kind of very cute, syrupy, kind of sentimental, romantic love story where kind of everything works out well. But this film is about again two young people who fall in love, and then we follow their relationship through their through different ups and downs for like about 5 years. But yeah, like I said, it's very syrupy in the beginning, but then towards the end, the film actually becomes really mature and more realistic, which probably people who just want syrupy escapist romance probably didn't like that. It becomes more mature towards the end, but I liked it. This was a very touching story. I connected to this very heavily, kind of emotionally. There's this one moment in a restaurant towards the end that kind of really sums up the themes of the film, and that made me very emotional. And this couple that we follow, and they are very likable, and they connect through kind of their similar interests that they like some of the same books and same manga and same music. There is even one point at the movie where they go to see Aki Kaurismäki's The Other Side of Hope in the cinema, so that was a nice moment for a Kaurismäki fan like me. Then they even mentioned my favorite Japanese band, Kinoko Teikoku, so that was another fun moment. But yeah, tonally, it's a bit all over the place, kind of like life can be. It shows that yeah, sometimes you have those amazing happy moments, but then you also have those depressing moments. This also explores Japanese culture and Japanese uh, society quite a lot because it shows how powerful this young love can be, but it also shows that as you grow older and you get more responsibilities in life and you have the kind of toxic work culture in Japan, that how that can kind of ruin people's lives and how that toxic work culture affects people's love life and their family life and how it can kind of really drain out all the joy from all the other aspects of your life too. So while again at first this film seems like a stupid romantic comedy, it becomes something more serious and something that kind of explores many essential things in Japanese society. But it's still like overall quite cliche and it doesn't really offer anything new to the table. But I just happen to love again romance films. So yeah, I love this film and it does those cliches, I think, in a very good way. And one of the reasons why the film is able to succeed is that the main couple are just very likable. And I could also kind of relate to them as they are also these kind of bit geeky type of people who love again music and manga and literature and movies and stuff. So I could really relate to them and see myself in them a little bit. Yeah, but this is another movie that I think I'm gonna rewatch a lot in the future because I had such a great time with it. Although I was kind of at shock first when it kind of has those tonal shifts because at first I thought that oh this is gonna be such a sweet romantic movie, but then it ended up becoming more mature than I thought it would be, but in a good way I think. Yeah, but yeah, very good movie, so I highly recommend that. And what's next? Yeah, I don't have that much to say about it, but I'll give a shout out to this one because this one was really good as well. So it's All the Long Nights, a very recent movie by Sho Miyake, another slice of life Japanese film. I also have another uh, film from this director ready to go. I think it was called Slow but Steady or something like that. I think it came out a couple years before this. But yeah, this is another story where two people end up like connecting with each other, both people who have their own issues. Yeah, but then they start bonding over, even though they have those different issues and they are different people. But this was a very simple slice of life film with very simple aesthetic. Not much happens in it, but I enjoy these types of films. So if you like those low-key Japanese slice of life films, I would highly recommend this one. But yeah, I don't really have anything to say about it, but it was a pleasant watch. Yeah, and that director might be someone to look out for. Yeah, I don't have that much to say about this either. I mean, I've talked about this director in the past, but it's Shunchi Iwai, so I finally watched this film. April Story, I think I watched this in the Internet Archive website if you're interested. So this is only uh, like an hour long. Yeah, I don't know why it's constantly recommending me stuff about the like these ads are constantly about like Ukraine and Russia. Yeah, but yeah, this was a good kind of slice of life film. It doesn't kind of reach the heights of Shunji Iwai's best films, but this has his kind of standard, very hypnotic style. Maybe not in kind of full force as some of his other films. This felt like this was maybe a bit more low budget than some of his other films, so he wasn't kind of able to realize his full style in this film. I could be wrong about the budget, but it at least felt like that. Yeah, not much happens here, but it's a very pleasant slice of life film. Yeah, very beautiful. What next? Well, another slice of life film. You can see how much I love slice of life films, especially from Japan. So I've watched Naomi Kawase's Sweet Bean, a film that I've been aware of for quite a long time. I've wanted to see for quite a long time. Yeah, yeah. There's not much that happens here. It's about this old woman who goes to work in this restaurant. Like she insists that she always has wanted to work on a restaurant like that, and then she develops a bond with the guy who uh, works at the restaurant. Yeah, but yeah, nothing happens in it, but it's a very beautiful kind of meditation on life and how life develops and all different stages of life. Really beautiful slice of life movie, beautifully shot, beautifully acted. Yeah, I have not really anything bad to say about this film. And I've really been meaning to can get into Naomi Kawase's work more, but I just haven't gotten around to it. And sometimes some of her films can be a bit inaccessible and hard to find. But yeah, I watched this online, but this is available in the Masters of Cinema Blu-ray line as well, although it might be out of print. I think her film The Morning Forest is available there as well, which is another one that I need to watch. Then this next one I have nothing to say about, Little Forest Summer Autumn. There's also a sequel to this that I need to watch, which is about like winter and spring. But yeah, this didn't kind of do that much to me. It was well made, but it was kind of boring at the same time. Then I rewatched a couple of Sion Sono films. I wonder should I talk about these that much because I have talked about Sono in the past. But Why Don't You Play in Hell has always been my favorite Sono film. And it's one of those films that if I need to get out of a rut in a film slump, like this is a film to go for because it always kind of reminds me of why I love cinema. It's very Tarantino-esque, but way better than anything than that Tarantino ever made, in my opinion. And yeah, it's all about the joy of filmmaking. It's a very meta film, very violent, but also very funny, over the top film. I don't know anymore whether this is my favorite or whether my favorite is Love Exposure. I mean, I think Love Exposure is at least a better film, like objectively, but this has always been kind of my slight favorite, and Love Exposure has always been my second favorite, but maybe Love Exposure is my favorite now, and I have Love Exposure in the podcast schedule, by the way, for the summer. So hopefully we can talk about that quite soon. And by the way, we were just emailing with Altes today, and we are planning to get back to the podcast this weekend to discuss Nagisa Oshima's Death by Hanging and Lee Chang-dong's Burning. So looking forward to that. And you should look out for that if you are interested in those two films. And Goldfish is this like a serial killer movie from Sono. Absolutely crazy. This was my second time watching it. I have to say I didn't like it quite as much on my second watch as I did on my first watch, but it's still a very good over the top movie. Yeah. Then this one I had been wanting to watch for quite a while. It's called Blue. What was the director's name? Hiroshi Ando. But it's another kind of school slice of life feel. I mean, it's a lesbian love story from 2002. So I guess it was quite bold for the time. Japan is a very homophobic society, although it's I think slowly getting better with that. But yeah. So this was again another very low key film. There's not much happening here. It has that kind of visual style that's very bare bones, but weirdly enough, bit kind of hypnotic as well. And yeah, it's like there's not much happening. It's just about these two girls who fall in love, and we see them in these kind of very mundane situations in this kind of a seaside town. But good performances from the two actresses. I think one of the actresses is the lady from Rent a Cat film. So it was interesting to see her when she was quite a bit younger. And then the other actress I had seen in quite a few films and shows, I think, or at least some shows, like in the show Orange Days, I had seen her. I'm actually gonna talk about that show a bit uh, as well. But yeah, I watched this on YouTube. It's in a pretty good quality on YouTube if you want to watch it. And if you like slice of life films, romance films, yeah, this is one to watch definitely. Yeah, although it didn't blow me away that much, it was almost maybe too spare in a way that it was kind of hard to connect to anything emotionally because it kind of felt very cold and emotionally distant, but I still liked it for the most part. Yeah. Yeah, then this is a Japanese show from 2017 called Quartet. This also is directed by Nobuhiro Doi, some other directors as well. So this was pretty interesting and unique. It's about these four people in their 30s, two women, two guys, and they start a string quartet. They play classical music, but none of them are like extremely talented. They are more like B B quality classical musicians, and they play in these kind of low key places, and they live together in this house as well. And they all have very interesting and quirky personalities. And this show had such a weird tone to it. It's very hard to describe. I think I've never seen a show or a movie that has this exact tone to it. Yeah, it's quirky. At times quite dry, but then at other times it's a bit over the top as well and really weird, even though it's kind of like a slice of life drama type of story, but somehow it ends up being very weird due to the characters and due to the tone. And then there are some kind of weird thriller elements to it even that develop throughout throughout the story, especially in the second half of the story. I think this show was like 10 episodes long. Yeah. But I kind of have a mixed thoughts about this. I like the characters. I like the story, but also I didn't love it. And again, like I said, the tone was so weird that I sometimes liked it, but sometimes it put me off as well. Yeah, but this one is really hard to talk about. It was kind of weird in a weird way. Yeah. But then another show that Nobuhiro Doi was involved in is Orange Days. But this one I talked about last year when I first watched it. But I already wanted to rewatch it because I love it a lot. I didn't love it maybe quite as much on my second watch as I did on my first watch, but I still really enjoyed it. And if you like J dramas with romance in time, definitely watch that. Then I'll give a quick shout out to this one as well. It's called Moonlit Winter. It's by Lim Da Hyung, a Korean film, although much of it is actually situated in Japan. So it's kind of like a Korean Japanese film, I guess. But it's about uh, a mother and her uh, daughter who is in her, like, I think, late teens. And they take this trip to Japan, this small town in Japan. Again, but the mother actually, like her childhood friend, lives there in Japan, and she ends up meeting her again after a very long break. Yeah, and this show has a like a low-key queer, like lesbian element to it as well. Although I think I would kind of spoil the movie if I kind of went into it more detail. But this is another very kind of low-key slice of life film that kind of focuses on these very kind of strong characters and their relationships, and the performances are very good, and that's kind of what sells the movie. There's not that much going on there. It's kind of a bit of a, I think, kind of character story like type of film that it just focuses on these characters and it explores these characters through very kind of small spare plot where not much happens. It's all about the kind of inner life of these characters, especially the mother, I would say. Yeah, but it was pleasantly short. It was a good movie, but it didn't blow me away. Yeah, but good stuff. And what's next? Yeah, so then I randomly decided to rewatch this rom-com called Saving Face, directed by Alice Wu. So this centers on again Chinese American characters and their life. So the main characters are this again Chinese American woman who is a doctor, and then her mother. Yeah, and both of them kind of fall in love, so the romantic comedy element is there in two, uh, like in like two different couples. Yeah, and then the mother again doesn't like that her daughter is a lesbian, so there's a bit of that element there as well. But it kind of explores two like taboo romantic things in the kind of Chinese culture. So there's that homosexual element, but then also the mother has a kind of taboo relationship with a guy. So it's interesting to see these kind of explorations of these kind of cultural expectations. And the interesting thing about this movie is that it feels like very American and very Chinese at the same time. So it manages to explore that point that what it means to be like a Chinese American. And I think it handles that really well. It's a very low key film, I think very low budget as well, but it's really well shot. It reminds me of lots of the kind of Chinese and Hong Kong and Taiwanese directors of around this time, like early 2000s and 90s. It takes some visual elements from there and manages to blend them well to her own style. Yeah, and the characters are quite likable, and the film has lots of funny moments as well. of course, it has those cliches as well, but it kind of manages to transcend those cliches as everything just works really well with this movie. And I had a great time watching it again, and I will definitely watch it more times in the future. So if you are looking out for a good rom-com that's better than your average rom-com, definitely watch this one. Not enough people talk about that one. Yeah, then I watched my first ever K-dramas, and I think I did such a great job choosing these two K-dramas because it sounds like I'm saying gay, but I'm saying K, so like Korean dramas. Yeah, but these were just absolutely mind-blowing, and both are probably new favorites, but especially this first one, I think this is probably the best first-time watch of the year for me so far. About an introduction to K-dramas. 2521 by Jung Yi Hyun from 2022. This was just absolutely mind-blowing. I absolutely loved everything about this and connected I connected to it like very deeply. And it was a very touching story, and even the final episode made me cry a little bit. And once the show finished, I was in kind of an emotional shock for a half an hour or an hour because it just touched me so deeply. So yeah, definitely an instant favorite. But yeah, let's talk about the plot a little bit. So this is a show that follows different characters for a few years. It starts in 1998 when there was that IMF crisis in Korea. Everybody was very poor at that time, and many families were destroyed due to that financial crisis. So we have again our main two characters here. So she is a teenager in high school, I think, when the story starts. I think she's 17 or 18 years old, and she has a dream of becoming a great fencer. So she uh, dedicates her time to become great at that sport of fencing. Fencing that again, I don't know anything about that sport, but this show actually focuses a lot on fencing, and it kind of made me interested in that sport because it actually looks pretty interesting in this show. But then we have this guy Park Ye-jin, uh, who was in a rich family, but then that financial crisis destroyed his family, and then all of his family gets separated due to that financial crisis, and now he has to make ends meet alone. And he's few years older than she is, so he's I think like 21 when the story starts. But then these two meet, they become friends, and for a long time their relationship is platonic, but then it also develops into a romance uh, in the story. But they have a great chemistry with each other, and I absolutely loved both of these characters. The performances are just incredibly strong from both of them, and then I kind of really fell in love with the guy as well. He's such a sweetheart and such a great character. Yeah, but the uh, all the what's the word? Side characters are great as well. There's this other fencer, Yukorim, I think is her name, and she was a character that annoyed me at first, but then as the story develops, she becomes one of my favorites. And her love interest in the show, this guy is also very good. But this is kind of a show that it has some of those romantic cliches. At times, it's very syrupy, and it at times it goes for like very over the top, romantic, beautiful moments. But then at times, it's like a very heartbreaking, very mature exploration of how Korean society was affected by those that IMF crisis, and we see how that destroyed so many families and how brutal it was for Korea when that happened. And it doesn't destroy these families just because they become poor, but due to some of the Korean cultural traditions, we see kind of how big of a part money plays in the families and how families might decide to kind of separate due to these financial issues. So it's not just that the families become poor, but they actually get separated due to these money issues. And this show kind of blends in really well, again, romance drama with exploration of social issues, because this also explores many other social issues, like corporal punishment in schools was one issue that it explored in a very interesting way. And it explores through that also that kind of hierarchy in Korean society and also gender relations a bit. And then there are some interesting discussion on journalistic ethics here as well, and as well that when a journalist has to work in the news and when they sometimes have to cover topics where they might themselves be involved in and how that affects the journalist's life and their relationships when if they have to, for example, report about somebody that they know in real life and how that affects and all the ethics surrounding that. So there are lots of these interesting contemplations about Korean society and also these other things in life. It even explores the 9/11 stuff in New York, so it actually has a very uh, huge scope. Structurally, it's very interesting, uh, kind of how it goes through these different years of time, and it actually shows us like current day in the 2020s when we see the daughter of one of these characters, and she's kind of looking back at her mother's life, and so kind of most of the story is actually kind of flashbacks to the 90s and 2000s, but then like 5% of the story is also in the current day, and we see kind of where some of the characters are at now and how their children are now. And I read that some people didn't like the ending of the show, but the ending is actually really good. And the reason why many people didn't like it because the ending is actually so mature. It's very contemplative, and it doesn't kind of have that kind of syrupy happy ending necessarily, but it has a bit more of a melancholic ending. And of course, if you watch these shows just for escapism, you might not like it when shows end in a more mature way and you just want everything to fall into place perfectly. But I don't expect shows like this to be like that. Yeah. But yeah, I just connected to this so much. I absolutely loved all the characters. I loved the romantic moments. They made me so happy. But then I was devastated by some of the darker and more mature moments in the show. There was even a nice kind of shout out to the game StarCraft in this because of course StarCraft came out around the time where the story of this show started, and I'm a big StarCraft guy, and of course StarCraft was so big in Korea, so that was kind of a nice small thing here, that a small shout out that they gave here. Yeah. Oh my God, this was just such a great show. Yeah. Probably something I'm gonna watch like every year now. And there were just so many other kind of small details that I love, like how she, again, the main uh female character, like how she calls like his name in the like packaging, like even that, like kind of small things, and how she says his name, like that kind of connected with me so much. So was just one of those shows that kind of has that magical aura to it, that it kind of got me into hypnosis, and I just loved everything about it, and I never wanted it to end. It's like 20 hours long. It's 16 episodes, and the episodes are usually like 70, 80 minutes long. I think the last couple of episodes were a bit longer, so they were like 90 minutes or something. And that seems to be a pretty typical length for these Korean shows, that there are 16 episodes and the episodes are like 70, 80 minutes long. Yeah. But yeah, this is also very highly rated by other people. I think it has like 4.3 here on Letterboxd. That was like 8.6 on IMDb. So I'm not the only one who is hyping this one out, and it was such a great introduction to K-drama. So definitely, if you are into drama series, definitely watch this one. It even reminded me of my one of my other favorite shows, Heartstopper, because that show also has these kind of syrupy romantic moments, but it also explores like these harder social topics. So in that way, it reminded me of this. But although Heartstopper is way more candy flushed than this, like overall, because this one had lots of darker moments as well. But this other show was pretty much as good as 25, 21. So this I finished last night. It's called Hometown Cha Cha Cha. Yeah, this probably like if I look at it critically and objectively, this wasn't as good as 25, 21. But if I look at just pure enjoyment, like this was absolutely incredible. And this one also, kind of like some of the other things I've talked about here, had some like very big tonal shifts to it that at first this seems like a kind of romantic comedy that plays around with kind of some like class differences and cultural differences and things like that. But then towards the end, it kind of moves to way more darker topics as well, like exploring trauma and things like that. So yeah, it was very interesting tonally. At times, it's very sentimental, but not in a bad way. I think the characters are so great, story is great that they managed to sell the sentimentality well. That's something I've noticed in like Korean and Japanese movies and shows in general that they are able to do sentimentality really well often, unlike in America. But yeah, I should give a plot synopsis of it now. So this is about this dentist. Again, she is 34 years old. She works in Seoul, in the capital of Korea, South Korea, huge city. But then she gets into a fight with her boss, and then she decides to quit her job. And then she goes to this seaside village called, I think, Gongqing, where that she has also visited in the past a couple of times. And then she meets these like really weird characters in Gongqing, and then she kind of suddenly decides that, oh, I'm gonna uh, start a dental practice here in Gongqing, and then she moves to this small town, and again she meets this guy who's a pretty weird guy, like he's kind of jack of all trades type of guy that he's good at everything, he's very smart, very handsome. Like I myself fell in love with him, but yeah, he knows kind of how to do everything. But we find out in the series that he's just like a Superman on the outside, but he actually has a very traumatic past. A lot of the darker things in the show relate to his past. That we can slowly learn more about his past. Yeah, but they become friends at first, even though they are kind of very different people, and then they slowly develop their relationship. So that's basically the plot. But this town, this seaside town, it's really beautiful, even though it kind of has those worn down houses and stuff. But there's just some magic and beauty about that town and its people. And it's kind of that typical story that kind of is situated in a weird small town that again all the characters are really weird and they are like every single character has like their own weird thing, so they are not like weird in the same way, but they are weird in different ways. Like there's the of course the a woman who is gossiping about everything and knows everything that is going on in the city, like that's the typical archetype. Then there are those kind of sweet old ladies that we really connect to. Then there's a closeted lesbian there. Then there is this guy who back in the 90s was like a one-hit wonder. He released a hit single, but he's still living in the past. And so every new person that he meets, he says that, oh yeah, I'm this famous singer. You might know me from this song. And let me give you my autograph and my CD. And then the people are turned off by him because he's just talking about himself and stuff like that. And Yeah, there were just so many great characters in this, and I love the main two characters that you see here and their chemistry. Like I said, I especially fell in love with the guy. Like he's just so handsome and very kind of funny and such a great guy as well. But this also has some interesting themes to it, although they are quite cliche. So it explores that kind of difference between the city life and village life. And again, she's from Seoul. She loves to shop expensive clothes and she loves expensive brands and she has some kind of conservative values in a way, although in other ways she's kind of like a modern surface level liberal. And then she kind of her ways kind of clash with the ways of this town. But the main male character kind of is able to play kind of both sides, the soul side and then the village side. Yeah, but those cultural and class differences are very interesting. And one of the most common sentences that they say in this show is that, oh, that's so old fashioned because they kind of discuss these differences that some people say, oh, you shouldn't get divorced. But then another person says that, oh, that's so old fashioned. So they explore these things in Korean culture, which are quite interesting. Yeah. And this show is just so funny, especially kind of the first half of the show before it kind of starts getting a bit more serious. Like it's just so funny, and I just had such a great time with it. Like the humor really spoke to me. There are even a couple of like pretty good action scenes in it in this, so it even has a bit of that side to it. But such a charming town, so many charming characters, so many great performances. Yeah, and god, this was such a good show as well. Probably a new favorite, I think, and yeah, something I can see myself like watching every year. And this was also like around the same length as the other show that I talked about, so 16 episodes and around 20 hours long, but it flows by so well. And both of these shows, I mean, they take their time, but they at the same time just so good in every episode. And both of these shows had like all the episodes were good in them. And although this show, the other show that I just talked about, like in that I kind of really got into it in the first episode, but this show I was a bit unsure in the first episode. I kind of enjoyed the first episode. I was laughing. I kind of liked the characters, but the characters at the same time at first kind of turned me off a little bit. And then the cinematography here turned me off a little bit at first. Like it has these kind of very quick cuts at times, and the editing kind of was a bit too intense for me at first. But then for some reason in the second episode and forward, it didn't bother me anymore. So I don't know if they kind of changed the visual speed after the first episode. Maybe they wanted to have the first episode to be a bit more intense to kind of grab the viewers because of course these days everybody has such low attention spans, so they want everything to be quick, but I kind of prefer more chill style. But maybe, but it could also be that my eyes just got kind of used to the quicker editing and stuff, so it didn't bother me in other episodes, just in the first episode. Yeah. But God, this was such a good show. Yeah. Both of these shows had like pretty good soundtracks, I think, as well, especially the 25-21. Like I've been actually meaning to listen to the soundtrack, like even like without watching the show again, because I there were a couple songs there that I really enjoyed. But what an introduction to Korean uh, dramas. These were absolutely incredible. And I often hear from people that they think that Korean dramas are actually on average better than Japanese dramas. And I, based on these two, that might be the case. Like it felt like these had a bit more kind of higher production value. And then the Japanese dramas often are very campy and they're a bit over the top and they often are kind of focused on just entertainment rather than also building actually like great works of art. But I think these two Korean dramas that I watched, they managed to be both very entertaining but also quite artistic at the same time. And the episodes also feel like very cinematic. Just yeah, it doesn't feel like it's a show in that way. It feels like you are just watching a movie series almost because it's shot so well and done in a beautiful way. And yeah, I really love the visuals here. I like good colors and good angles and everything worked really well. Yeah, but that's it for this long-winded video. Hopefully you got some recommendations from this video and look out for the podcast that's gonna come back soon with Lee Chang-dong's Burning and Nagisa Oshima's Death by Hanging. I'm very much looking forward to watching those films again as I haven't watched them in a while. Yeah, I'm still very tired from my studies. I've had a bit of insomnia, so hopefully I will be in good shape when we do the podcasts. I mean, I've had insomnia in the past too when we've done some of them, so yeah, it should work out well. But we'll see. We'll see. Let me know what you have watched lately. Let me know if you have seen any of these, and hopefully, maybe you can check out some of these in the future. And again, if you end up checking out some of these, definitely let me know what you think. So thanks for watching. Don't drink Coke at all. Sayonara and arigato gozaimashita.